I'm excited to announce that the next session of the Second Act Accelerator course will be launching in January. Learn more at secondactsuccess.co/course. This program is for professionals ready to pivot to a new career. Within just 6 weeks, you will have a roadmap to get you from where you are now to where you want to be. Join like-minded individuals in our private community group. Plus, you will have access to weekly group coaching, live workshops, expert guests, and one-on-one coaching with me. Learn more about the Second Act Accelerator and sign up at secondactsuccess.co/course. I hope to see you in the next session of the Second Act Accelerator this January.
It's normal when it's hard, and it's going to test your problem solving skills, but it's doable. If you fail, that's okay. Don't see it as a failure. See it as something that you were able to learn along the way and move forward.
Are you at a crossroads in your career? Ready for a change, but you're not sure how to get there? Don't worry. We are about to produce your best life together. Welcome to the Second Act Success Podcast. I am your host, Shannon Russell. I am a former television producer turned boy mom. I left my dream job to find family balance, and in doing so, I produced my dream life. Now I am a business owner, podcaster, and career coach. My mission is to help other women like you find what they are truly meant to be doing. If you are ready to start over in your career or pivot to a new purpose, then get ready to be inspired by stories of women who have done just that. We will share advice and actionable tips to motivate you as you move along on your path. It is time to shine, so let's start producing your balanced life of abundance today. This is Second Act Success. Today, Sheri Saginor is here with me. She is a woman who is not afraid to make changes to her career. Trust me, she has tried all of the things. Sheri went to school for music and was a professional singer for many years, even performing in wedding bands. When the late nights became too much, Sheri dove into high-tech sales and used her voice to sell. She then took a few years off to be a stay-at-home mom, and when her children went to school, Sheri began using her voice in a different way. She became a speechwriter up until the pandemic hit. Then Sheri had to pivot once more into her current role. She is now an audiobook narrator and producer. There is so much to talk about with Sheri, so let's get to it. This is Sheri Saginor and her Second Act Success story. Hello, Sheri. Welcome to Second Act Success. It's so nice to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Let's start where your career journey began.
Let's see. So I have degrees in English language and literature and a second degree in music. So I studied language and then I studied composition. So I spent my 20s as a professional musician, and I sang some commercial work, but my bread and butter was general business bands, weddings, bar mitzvahs, baptism parties. And so I enjoyed it thoroughly. I really did. But you can only spend so many nights at 1:30 in the morning singing YMCA for a group of drunk wedding guests before you decide that you're just tired of living hand to mouth. And so that's what happened to me. I want a salaried position. And I did some soul searching, skills assessment.
Oh, awesome. That is one of the first things that I use when working with my coaching clients. So tell me what you came up with doing a skills assessment on yourself.
What surfaced was that I wanted a job in high tech. I wanted a job in technology. I was not a programmer or anything like that, but there are lots of jobs in high tech companies that are not computer programming. So I applied for a job at Nortel Networks, which is a big company in Canada, or was. And I was hired first as an administrator, but I had a goal. In a year, I wanted to be an outside sales rep. And a year later, that's what I was.
Nice. Oh, it's so great to hear because it's all about setting that timeline for yourself and giving yourself a goal to work towards, right?
I spent my 20s as a professional musician, and then my late 20s, early 30s as a high-tech sales executive interfacing with companies. I had my first child and then my second child. And when I had my second child, I realized that I couldn't do both jobs well. I said, time to do something different. And so then I left that job and spent a few years until my second started school, mostly at home. But then when he went off to school, I decided to do something different. So another pivot, another round of skills assessments and what do I really want to do? And what surfaced was I want to work for myself. I want to start my own business. What popped in my mind was I want to be a speechwriter. It was a way for me to use my communication skills. I didn't know if you could be a freelance speechwriter. So I Googled, can you be a freelance speechwriter? And up popped an article called, So You Want to Be a Freelance Speechwriter? And
Like,
I read
yes,
the
yes.
article. Yes, I do. Here's how you do it. And here's how you get started. It was written by a Canadian who was a veteran in the industry. And I called him and said, did you mean it? Because I want to do this. And he became a mentor. So it was wonderful. I joined the Professional Speechwriters Association, honed my chops, and ran that business up until just before the pandemic. Not many people are hiring freelance speechwriters during the pandemic because nobody, globally, nobody is delivering speeches in front of a live audience.
No. Just when you were in a great place and on a roll with your speech writing, that's such a shame.
So it was time to pivot again. And I had already been thinking about audiobook narration. And so there's a lot of information about how to do it. I got some coaching, I took some courses all during the pandemic and really got good. I built a studio in my home and really got it sounding good. It's been a few years now that I've been doing this. And the great thing I can tell you is that what I'm doing now, I love the most.
Isn't that funny? You pivot, and then the universe throws you a pandemic and you find your true passion.
But if you're looking for the through line between what seem to be disparate careers, it's that in every one, I'm using my voice to communicate with others or to help others get their message across. So, as a singer, in my 20s, high-tech sales exec in my 30s, speechwriter in my early 40s, and now I am an audiobook narrator.
How
That's the scoop.
That is so amazing. And you're right. That is, I love talking about the thread or the through line, and that you just summed it up perfectly. I just love it. And I want to break it down a little bit. Being a singer, that's like everyone's dream, is to perform, whether you're Britney Spears or performing at a wedding. It's just exciting to be out there singing songs and having fun. How was that experience, especially in your 20s?
Well, let's see. First, I'll demystify it a little bit, and then I'll tell you why I gave it up. What going to music school and my years as a singer taught me was that I didn't want to be a performer with the spotlight on me. If you are interested in being a singer, I would say go for it. But it's a hard life to make a living at. You have to love the work.
And you were in Boston performing. Is that where you were
Yes,
living at
I
the
was in
time?
Boston. I was in Boston. And there are a lot of people who wanted to go to New York or LA. It was really scary for me to accept that that was not going to be my path. How it finally settled with me was that I don't regret that time at all, either studying the craft or doing the work, because I learned a lot.
Right. You were able to check it off your list. And I think that's so important. And I like to stress with my guests too, is that you're still a singer. You could go and sing in a band tomorrow if you wanted to, but you had that experience that not a lot of people have, of being paid to be a musician in your 20s.
Yes.
So it's nice that you learned that that wasn't your forever calling, but you were able to accomplish it.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. I mean, I put myself through school. So, and again, it was so rewarding. But I agree with you. You don't have to have one identity. And there are other ways to pursue a passion besides making a business of it. So I hope that resonates with your guests.
I think so. And coming from the TV production world, being very freelance, I kind of feel like we're on the same page as far as you work a gig, you get paid. If you don't work the gig, you don't get paid. So I can see how a salaried position would sound really exciting to you when you're out there at 1:30 in the morning, like you said. So then you start getting those thoughts in your head of like, maybe I should get a 9 to 5 job with a paid salary and the benefits. How did you come to decide that high tech sales was really your passion that you wanted to pursue?
Well, at the time, I didn't know. I had a book that was called High Tech Jobs for Not Tech People, or maybe Low Tech People. And I read the book and learned about the different jobs. So it was a combination, saying to myself, what transferable skills do I have? And how might that map to this industry, computer networking, that on a high level, I truly am interested in? And where might I fit in? So again, it was deliberate. It was deliberate. I came down one day and said to my husband, okay, I figured out what I want to do next. He knew I had been doing this inner work to figure it out and skills reassessment. But I said, I'm going to be a high tech salesperson. And his jaw dropped. He's like, sounds good to me, dear. Let's just go for it. Just go for it.
You had the support of him. Not everybody has the support of a spouse or a partner, but that's wonderful that you had that. And I think it's so nice, Sheri, that you were open to taking this admin position when you started at the company. You weren't expecting to get this high-tech sales job right off the bat. You started entry level to learn a little bit about the business, and you just kept it in your head that this is where I want to go. And you let it be vocally known. And you ended up getting there about a year later, you said?
That's right, about a year later. And frankly, while I was singing, I was working as an administrator at a university public health division. And so I had the skills to do it. I think a key part was when I went in as an admin, I said to my boss, my goal is to eventually be in outside sales. And he laughed. He laughed.
No.
But then he left the company. And within the company, I found folks who were more willing to not just give me a shot, but have faith in me that I could actually do it. It was not easy either. There was a big learning curve. I was fortunate in that they needed a lot of reps, and I was able to learn the industry in a relatively low stakes, low stress job, and then move on from there.
In your role as an outside sales rep for the company, you're going out, you're talking to other businesses, you're still using your voice to communicate and to sell. So that's something that you use your prior skills as a singer performer to bring into this role as well.
And skills that I got there that, believe it or not, I was able to use when I went into speech writing. So a lot of my job was sales presentations. I had to craft them and then present them clearly, cogently, and without a lot of fluff. And so I learned that I have a skill of using my voice speaking, and also taking other people's, in this case, a company's materials, and basically turning that into something like a speech. So again, I stress the sort of the through line, which makes it not so crazy that I decided to be a speechwriter. The other thing I want to emphasize is, remember I said that what I learned from being a professional singer was that I didn't want the spotlight directly on me. And so what was great about writing speeches was that I could give voice to someone else, but it's very behind the scenes. And I really loved that. The best part of that was taking somebody's thoughts and turning that into, again, something clear, cogent, deliverable, working with that client. So it's not such a crazy transition.
Yes. And I don't want to skip over that you went from being the sales exec to speech writing because you had another significant job in between, which was being a stay-at-home mom.
Yes, that's right. That's right. There was some grief in giving up my professional identity to stay at
Right.
home. And there wasn't long before I was itching to do something different, but my children needed some extra care and I made a decision. And I would encourage any mother not to beat herself up if she can't have it all at once at the same time.
That's excellent advice. And it's a good reminder because we all feel like we should be able to. Why is it just me that can't have it? It's not just you. There's so many of us who struggle. And I like that you kind of separated it. Okay, I'm leaving this job. I'm going to be with my kids and I'm going to maybe have a time frame for it. And then I'm going to move on to the next. You enjoy the time that you had, and your wheels were probably turning in there. And you were thinking, okay, well, I'm going to go and start thinking about my next chapter.
It was good. It was a nice business to build and run. And I really loved the work, but it was a lot of work.
So then COVID comes and you get into audiobook narration.
Yes.
Another really cool niche. Were you always a big fan of listening to audiobooks?
Yes, I think that was the impetus. I had listened to audiobooks before they were everywhere. I listened to podcasts and I was really interested in people using their speaking voice to educate or entertain. In fact, it started as one arm of my speech writing business. So that's how it came about. I did make a specific decision to make the investment. Basically, the COVID stimulus money and unemployment that I was given during that time financed the equipment, the hardware that's necessary in the booth, the creation of a sound, not a soundproof booth, because that's not what you want, but a whisper quiet booth where there's no reverb, software that you need. I had to learn how to record, edit, and then master the recordings. Because when you start out, if you don't have any experience, there is a platform called ACX. It's the Amazon Creation Exchange. And that is a matchmaking service between authors who want to have their books produced by an audiobook producer. You can audition for them and then create the book for them. I would get the business, usually through outreach or through auditions. And then you record the book, you listen back and edit mistakes that you make. And then you have to master the finished product. And then you sell it through a distributor. In the case of ACX, it's Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. So a big learning curve, but it just clicked. There was so much to learn. But I was lucky again. I had the time and the resources and the energy to dive into it. And also the support. The audiobook community is generous with guidance and support. And now I produce audiobooks for independent authors, soup to nuts. But then I also narrate for companies that their whole business is producing audiobooks, and then for publishers who need audiobooks for their print books.
So you are busy. You really have your hand in all different aspects of this industry.
It's just wonderful to have the flexibility and the tools that I can take a project, no matter what I have to do, and make it happen for the client. But I really do love working with independent authors. They bring me a manuscript and I work with them. It's like speech writing. It's about capturing their voice. And I don't mean mimicking them, but getting the tone of the book, the pace of the book, and the spirit of the book is something that you have to capture to make the work successful.
I find it really interesting that even with where you are now, producing and narrating audiobooks, that you're still getting to perform, but you're still out of the spotlight. Was that another conscious choice?
Yes, it is. Such a great question and a great linking. Yes, because their audiobook narration is a performance, whether it's nonfiction or any of the fiction genres. Romance is different than mystery, is different than thriller, it's different than science fiction. So, yes, absolutely, there's an element of performance. But I'm able to do something that I wasn't when you're singing a song in real time. And that's take your time. And there's editing too. And I do a technique called punch and roll. Basically, if you do a mispronunciation, you can go back immediately and re-record over it and then continue to record. So, yes, I get to take my time. I don't have to do it all at once. I am in closed space by myself. And as an introvert, that has aligned with my temperament. So
nice. So you're getting to be this business owner, working, creating your own time, creating your own work, and putting all of your skills together. What is the process? How long does it take you to actually work on the narration for that book?
it depends on the length of the book. Also, the genre. Nonfiction takes more time than fiction usually, because in nonfiction, there's often more names, places. There's a lot more to look up. And if it's a technical book, you've got to learn how to narrate the chemistry equations, as opposed to a romance, which goes pretty quickly. The work is creating characters and telling the story in a way that flows. So, people are surprised sometimes when they think that when you're recording an audiobook, you can basically just turn on your iPhone and read it and then you're done. But it's so much more involved than that. For every finished hour, and by finished, I mean listenable, it takes me, if I'm producing myself, including the research, the prep, between 4 and 6 hours of my time to do that whole process. So it's a lot of work. At the same time, I often encourage authors, if they want to narrate their own books, especially if it's nonfiction and they want to connect with their authors, I encourage people to do that. But you've got to go in knowing that it's not just turning on your iPhone. There are audio quality standards that the audio needs to meet before a publisher will post it for sale.
Hey, it's Shannon. If you are enjoying this podcast, then you will love my weekly newsletter. It's full of career advice, productivity tips, and of course, inspiring stories of women who have launched a new career that they love. Just go to secondactsuccess.co to sign up. Plus, you'll get the My Success Vision Board to help you with your 2023 planning as well. Now it's back to the episode. What is your favorite genre, I guess, to record?
I specialize in nonfiction, and that's because that's what I read on my own. I do narrate fiction. The most recent piece of fiction that I did was a mystery set in Oklahoma. It was actually really interesting because for that book, I had to learn or dive deep into a Mexican American accent. There were two characters who had immigrated, but late enough that they still had an accent. One was the editor of a newspaper, and one was a female rancher in the community. So different accents, different genders, but they were both Mexican American accents. And I hired a dialogue coach to really show me the mouth position, the different ways that vowels and consonants are pronounced. And so it's this sort of mini project within this larger project. And so lots of opportunity to learn. It's fun.
Would you suggest to maybe any of our listeners who may be performers or have this aspiration to use their voice in public to possibly go into audiobook narration?
Yes. If you're interested in performing with your voice, there are lots of avenues. There is voiceover work for commercials, and that's what you normally think of as commercials, narrating for animation, and then even doing corporate narration and documentary narration. And then in fiction, if you want to do audiobook, either nonfiction or fiction narration, I would suggest that you find the forums on audiobook narration and start reading them. I'm living proof that you can decide to do it with transferable skills, teach yourself how to do it, acquire the right equipment, get the mentoring that you need. But just like learning any new skill or starting any new business, it takes time, it takes patience on your part. The great thing about the age that we're living in now is that you can teach yourself these different performance modalities, or at least investigate them. And you can find other people to help teach you and support you as you do it. For me, it was seeking out other audiobook narrators for general support and also proven steps you can take toward your goal so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. It feels lonely sometimes to be in a booth by yourself for hours. And if that's an avenue that your listeners may be interested in, that's a piece of it. But there are tools out there for whatever you think your performance passion may be. And it doesn't have to be a business. As I think you alluded to, there are ways to express any creative outlet or new endeavor slowly at first, figure out if it's really what you want to do, and be kind to yourself along the way.
I love that. And I think that there's always people to help. You found a mentor early on with speech writing. And, I'm going to link all of your information in our show notes so that if someone is really resonating with you and they want to reach out, that I'm sure you'd be willing to help in any way possible. I feel like that's where this crazy online world of ours, we're all connected in some way, and just finding like-minded people who are happy to help others along the way. I feel like that's what we all kind of need and look for these days.
Yes. And in audiobook narration specifically, I mean, it's kind of show business adjacent because you do need to promote yourself. You do need a good headshot. At some point, you really do need a website, and social media. Promoting yourself is part of it. So it's interesting. All that being said, audiobook narration is a genre where it's low stakes. I mean, you are not in a feature film. The expectations of quality are high. I mean, you have to be good at it to continue to rise, but it's low stakes enough that it's unpretentious.
Right. Very true.
So,
and you are using your same skills. Unfortunately, I guess the one downside is that you're back to being project to project with your work, like you were as a performer.
That's true.
But creating your business and really growing, and you have your hand in all different avenues in the industry, and you're doing it on your own accord. Like this is what you want to do at this juncture of your life. And it's so phenomenal. I think it's such a different type of career, and you have just really created this wonderful world for you and your family. And it's so nice to see. All right, it's time for our 5 fast cues of the week. Here we go. The first one is name one thing that these different chapters in your life have taught you.
One of the things that made my approach different than other people's, but that was incredibly valuable, is being deliberate about it. You don't necessarily have to decide immediately that you're going to do X, but do your homework. If your homework means informational interviews with other people in the industry, if it means reading books, if it means going on online forums, whatever it is, embrace and take advantage of the way that you can test the waters and just try it out if that's a possibility for you, because we're in an age right now when that's more possible than ever.
Very true. So would you recommend taking a leap into a big life change to your best friend?
It depends on the friend and where they are in their life. I would take my cues from that friend. If you're asking whether or not someone should feel the very normal fear, anticipation, excitement, but mixed with terror, but they really want to do it, yes, I would recommend that they try it, that they take the leap. Even though it can sometimes feel very lonely, you're not alone.
What is one piece of advice that you would give to someone trying to start their second act?
When I became a mother, it was a life change. And what I like to tell other mothers is that you're going to hear a lot of, this is beautiful. It's great bonding with your child, and there's so much bliss and so much joy. And not enough gets talked about how hard it really is to be sleep deprived, to have this whole little being basically borrowing your psyche for a while until they can develop their own. And so that I would transfer to any new endeavor. It's normal when it's hard, and it's going to test your problem solving skills, but it's doable. If you fail, that's okay. Don't see it as a failure. See it as something that you were able to learn along the way and move forward.
What does the next chapter look like for you?
Two things: to continue to expand my business with all that that entails, continue to find interesting projects to work on, basically build that business. So that's one thing. The other thing is that my second child is 3 years away from graduating. And so I can see my next act happening when he leaves the nest. And I believe that I will still be doing this line of work, but it's going to be a change, and it's going to open up different possibilities. Frankly, what I would love to see in my next act is embracing the joy. I think in my next act, I'll be cultivating that, just looking around more.
That's wonderful. Where can our audience really connect with you?
I'm on most social media: LinkedIn, Facebook. I do have a TikTok account too, Instagram, and my website, sherisaginor.com, SheriSaginor.com. And you can reach me at sherisaginor.com. And all my social media handles are Sheri Saginor. If you're interested in audiobook performance, I'm happy to talk to any of your listeners about in more depth about what it involves. And if you're an author who is looking for someone to produce their audiobook for them, reach out to me and I'll tell you what the different options are.
Fantastic. Oh, Sheri, this was such a lovely conversation and just so interesting. I love your whole journey, and I'm so happy for where you are today and for what the next chapter brings. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for making this so enjoyable. I think you're a fantastic interviewer, and it was really a pleasure to just chat with you and answer your questions. So thanks so much. I wish you continued success.
Thank you, Sheri. Absolutely. Right back at you. Sheri's story is extra special, I think, because she has had many different careers over the years. She really has been able to use her voice in different ways throughout all of her career changes. It sounds like she has really found her purpose and her voice now with narrating and producing audiobooks, and I wish her nothing but the best. To learn more about Sheri, go to her website, sherisaginor.com. Thank you for joining us. I hope you found some gems of inspiration and some takeaways to help you on your path to second act success. To view show notes from this episode, visit secondactsuccess.co. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a single episode. Reviews only take a few moments, and they really do mean so much. Thank you again for listening. I'm Shannon Russell, and this is Second Act Success.